Yeah, hi folks. Yes, Labour, the Greens and the Maori Party can suck eggs because Winston is now in charge, and of course aided by David Seymour. But as we all know, it was Winston who had all the power in these negotiations, and he has gotten significant results from that power. Now folks, I'll start this off today with the results that stood out for me. Commit that the government will not change the official name of New Zealand. Support a binding referendum on a 4-year term of Parliament. No transgenders in sport. Legislate to make English an official language of New Zealand. Ensure all public service departments have their primary name in English and they communicate in English as well. Protect freedom of speech and stop the Law Commission's work on hate speech legislation. End all COVID-19 vaccine mandates still in operation. And have an independent inquiry into how the COVID pandemic was handled. Remove co-governance from the delivery of public services. Now that's a good start, but co-governance should also be removed from all legislation as well. Public services should be prioritised on the basis of need, not race. Go back to having local referendums on Maori wards. Now, I don't think Maori wards are needed anyway. Maori can compete for positions on local councils like the rest of us. Stop all work on he puapua and confirm that UNDRIP is not binding on New Zealand.
Tēnā tātou katoa, good evening. Tēnā tātou katoa, good evening. Strap in, New Zealand. We are about to have a very different kind of government. For the first time in our history, it'll be a three-party coalition, and a lot of change is coming your way, including 2 deputy prime ministers. New Zealand First Leader Winston Peters and ACT Leader David Seymour will share the job, splitting the 3-year term in half, with Winston going first. In terms of policies, National managed to get its tax cuts across the line, sort of. Most Kiwi households will get a tax cut from July, but plans to fund it with a foreign buyers tax are axed. For landlords, however, tax cuts are coming sooner. ACT has secured support for a bill on defining the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi, but there will not be a referendum. New Zealand First has won a COVID inquiry which will investigate the efficacy of the vaccine and the use of multiple lockdowns. Fair pay agreements will be gone by Christmas. 90-day trials are back, and beneficiaries will be subject to harsher sanctions, including electronic money management in some cases. On the chopping block, brace yourself because there is a lot. The world-first legislation designed to create a smoke-free generation is gone. The Maori Health Authority scrapped. Infrastructure projects including light rail, Let's Get Wellington Moving and the Lake Onslow electricity scheme all next. Maori names for most government agencies will be gone, and Three Waters, well, it is dead in the water.
Yeah, all good there, but I'm not sure about the Lake Onslow one.
But there's a whole load of new policies to replace them. We have comprehensive coverage starting with political editor Jenna Lynch. So Jenna, how did the announcement go down?
After 41 days, the cone of secrecy lifted, and boy, there was a lot hiding under there. Shared responsibilities and near on 30 pages of small type font in these agreements, which will dramatically change the direction of this country. Ready, set, govern. Just steady the pace. Finding their formation and striding into power together.
What we have achieved together, I think, is historic because it is in fact the very first time in New Zealand's MMP history that we have had a 3-party coalition government with all parties represented in Cabinet.
Sharing the baubles between them.
I will be the Prime Minister, Mr Peters will be Deputy Prime Minister for the first half of the term, and Mr Seymour will be for the second half.
finally speaking as one after weeks locked away in secret talks.
I'm here with ACT Leader David Seymour and also New Zealand First Leader Winston Peters, and I want to publicly thank both of them for the way in which our negotiations were conducted so professionally and with goodwill and with good faith.
I have worked with Winston Peters and Christopher Luxon, and what I can tell you is that while the negotiations have been robust, so has the growth in respect amongst us.
These were seriously long, difficult and complicated talks, arduous in the extreme, and we expected nothing less.
The three newfound amigos' first spin at the podiums of power was a wild ride. Winston Peters took just 45 seconds to return to form.
Please do not be mathematical morons.
His coalition partners clearly uncomfortable, having to rein him in already.
Yeah, you want to argue with me? You should have been there before the election. Maybe I'd have got more votes.
All right. Okay.
So back to the point here.
Kicking off once more when News Hub dared suggest he was sharing the Deputy Prime Minister role with David Seymour.
A question for the two new co-deputies. Do you agree with
We're not co-deputies.
No.
Get it right for a start.
to the two people who are sharing the Deputy Prime Minister?
No, we're not sharing it either. I'm taking the first 18 months and David's taking the second 18 months.
Yeah, and he's got a point there, as sharing implies the same time.
Another, the deal is done. This is the coalition government. The three wise men came bearing the gifts of their gruelling negotiations.
It's in our coalition agreement. We went to the wire for our people in the same way that David Seymour did for his, and Mr. Luxon did for his as well. And that's the nature of these coalition talks.
National convinced the others to adopt its entire 100-day plan, crucially, its tax plan, except they're going to have to find some more money to fund it.
As part of National's proposed agreement, National's agreement with New Zealand First, the proposed foreign buyer tax will no longer go ahead.
The three promising better government and a more unified country.
We, in New Zealand First, for our part, know that there's going to be a much, much better government.
Unite New Zealand under our similarities rather than divide us.
But they're embarking on a controversial agenda, a broader inquiry into the COVID response, including the efficacy of the vaccine and lockdowns fought for by Winston Peters.
All we're saying is we want to broaden the terms of the COVID inquiry so it considers more things.
Transformative changes to treaty interpretation and Te Reo Māori use, removing the Māori names of government departments and requiring them to communicate in English.
Excellent.
We will no longer be treating people differently based on ethnicity as a starting point. We will be focusing public services on need.
And wading into the gender identity culture wars, with New Zealand First's pledge to strip gender, sexuality and relationship education out of school curriculum, along with a policy around gender in sport.
Excellent again. It's about bloody time.
Many policy wins for New Zealand First. Prisoners will be put to work building new prisons. The live animal exports ban will be scrapped. They'll investigate reopening Marsden Point oil refinery, and they'll restart offshore oil and gas exploration.
Yeah, the last two must be pissing off the greenies.
Does that match with our climate change goals?
Well, obviously those matters have to be teased through our cabinet process.
You cannot stop climate change by using more fossil fuels.
In discharging that role, I will not be dissuaded or distracted by emerald dragonflies.
Fees free stays, but the final year will be free, not the first. The pension age remains at 65. Government departments must have English names and communications apart from ethnic-specific ministries, and they'll repeal the smoke-free generation law which outlaws cigarettes over time.
We think there's issues around a 36-year-old can smoke but a 35-year-old can't. We just think some of that doesn't work.
They've decided to prioritise the tobacco lobby over the health of all New Zealanders.
New Zealand First has also got a commitment not to change the name of New Zealand unless there's a referendum. They'll also legislate to make English an official language, and they'll look at implementing degrees of murder like they have in the United States.
Yeah, now I haven't heard that one before.
The party gets 3 cabinet positions. Winston will be Deputy Prime Minister until the 31st of May 2025 and again picks up foreign affairs and racing. Shane Jones gets oceans and fisheries, regional development, resources and the associate finance and energy roles. Newcomer Casey Costello picks up customs and seniors as well as associate health, immigration and police portfolios.
Okay.
Yeah, and she will be good. She's a good woman.
Casey Costello is a serious, experienced police person, investigator, and with a serious record of respect out in their community.
Nationals held on to the agricultural ministerial portfolio, but Todd McClay has an astonishing 3 associate ministers beneath him. Mark Patterson from New Zealand First, Andrew Hoggard from ACT, they're both farmers, and Nicola Grigg from the Nats. Was there a bit of squabbling over the agricultural portfolio? Is that how it ended up this way?
No, I don't think I'd call it squabbling, but there's a lot of interest. If you look at the 3 parties, there's a lot of policy put out and a lot of campaigning in this area.
Sharing roles, the common theme in these coalition agreements.
In Cabinet, as well as getting half a term as Deputy PM, Seymour is the brand new Minister for Regulation and will be in charge of overseeing charter schools and changes to Farm Act. ACT Deputy Brooke Van Velden is the new Internal Affairs and the Workplace Relations Minister. Nicole McKee is the Minister of Courts and will be responsible for firearms as Associate Justice Minister. Outside Cabinet, there's former Fed farmer Andrew Hoggard with a number of associate responsibilities, and Karen Chur will be the Minister for Children and for the prevention of family and sexual violence.
Karen Chur completing an extraordinary journey from a victim of SIPS to the Minister for Children with the power and opportunity to make that dysfunctional organisation work.
On the policy front, Act 1, a rewriting of the Arms Act and a review of the gun register. Charter schools, a return of 90-day trials for workers, making it easier for landlords to evict tenants, but introducing pet bonds to make it easier for tenants to have pets, introducing a bill to get a 4-year parliamentary term, and deeper cuts to the public sector.
The commitment to reduce non-essential back office civil servants back to the levels we saw in 2017.
ACT has also secured harsher penalties for beneficiaries, like electronic sanctions.
People are really scared at hearing that today.
Oh, they're so scared.
We had people in contact. That is going to make life harder for them.
Gone are Three Waters, Auckland Light Rail, Let's Get Wellington Moving, income insurance and the Lake Oslo Pumped Hydro Project. Co-governance and public services scrapped. And instead of a referendum on the treaty, which Luxon consistently ruled out,
as I don't think that's helpful. I think it is divisive and it's not something we're supportive of.
they're doing it without taking it to the people by introducing a treaty principles bill.
The reality is that what Mr Seymour's asked for, he's got.
Isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And with no referendum.
Less democratic to push that bill through Parliament and not take it to a referendum to the people?
Well, our view is that we have said our government is actually going to support the passing of that bill through the first reading into the Select Committee, and that is the extent of our commitment at this stage.
They haven't even been sworn in yet, but already the minor parties are jostling over who is dismantling the influence of the treaty more, with New Zealand First also securing promises to narrow the scope of the Waitangi Tribunal and to review almost all legislation which has references to the principles of the treaty.
A government that's intending to whitewash Aotearoa.
No, we just want to stop your freeloading gravy train.
And wipe out Indigenous peoples.
This is certainly going backwards by 3 or 4 decades. It is going to turn progress back on Maori issues by a very, very long shot, including progress that was made under national governments.
Whether you're Maori, non-Maori, old, young, you expect us to work hard.
And what hard work it will be going near the treaty without the debate turning toxic.
Yeah, and I can't wait for it to start.
Amir Wade, News Hub.
We're going to go back to Jenna Lynch now. So, Jenna, a big day. Was there a winner?
I think all three parties will be claiming the win here and expect them to keep doing so all the way through the term. This is a true MMP government. National has obviously learned from Labour's 2017 experience in coalition, where they figured out that unless it was written in black and white in their coalition agreement, they could never count on New Zealand First supporting it. So National has secured in here support for its 100-day plan, its tax plan, its fiscal plan and its 100-point economic plan. But boy, it had to concede a lot to these smaller parties to get there. They have really shown their negotiating might, both ACT and New Zealand First, dragging National away from its comfortable centrist territory.
Yeah, now folks, her last comment was so true. Both Winston and David have forced Luxon away from his centrist position. And I predicted that would happen if they worked together, and it appears they have. Anyway, folks, I've posted all the relevant links below.